Welcome class back to Chapter 10, Files and Exceptions. This is the second video for Chapter 10 where we'll cover the objective of exceptions. So what are exceptions? Python uses special objects called exceptions to manage errors that arise during a program's execution. So we have seen probably many exceptions as we've come through this semester, and we refer to them as traceback errors. So exceptions are handled with a try except block. It's a way for us to cause maybe a message to come out if the exception happens, or just a way for us not to have that traceback error. So in this example, we're going to try to print out 5 divided by 0, and we're going to get an exception error or a traceback error. So instead of having that, we accept, and the error is called zero division error, and we print out the statement you can't divide by 0. So let's go ahead and try this program in Sublime. So it says give me two numbers and I'll divide them. Well, I'm going to try 5 divided by 0 first, and then we'll see that we get a traceback error. So 5, 0, and there's our traceback error. So the exception is called zero division error. So that comes back to us, that gives us a notice that when we use the try except feature, that we would code zero division error, and then we respond to that with our print statement. So let's go ahead and add that code in, and that is what we see on page 196. Or maybe I'm a little, bottom of page 194 is with the try statement. So I'm going to enter in what we see on page 196. So the one that's on the bottom of page 194 is just a simple 5 divided by 0, but I'm going to keep with this example. So between outputting here, and we'll actually use this right here, try. So when we try to get our answer of dividing the first number divided by the second number, if we get an exception or a traceback, what are we going to do with it? So zero division error, we are going to print you can't divide by 0. Okay, and I'm going to further add in the else statement where we're going to print out the answer. Okay, so we try, we get answer solved, hopefully. If we try to divide by 0, we get this exception, and if not, and then when we're done, if we don't get an exception, we're going to print the answer. So I'm going to save this, rerun this. So I will go 5 again, 0. You can't divide by 0. That's my exception. I'm going to go 5 divided by 5, and I get the answer of 1.0. Okay, so if it can do it, it's going to do that else clause. If not, it's going to come to our except clause. Another common one is the file not found error exception. And so that's if a file doesn't exist. So in this case, if alice.txt doesn't exist, we're going to say, sorry, the file alice.txt does not exist. So let's look at Alice. And let me strip this completely down. So file name, our with statement from our first section. I'll explain this coding here, or this character encoding here in a second. Now in our examples in our first section we used file underscore object, but you can really name it anything you want, and so the author has chosen to simplify it to be just referring to the file as the letter F. So we're going to read the entire contents of the file. Okay, and I am going to, well, first of all, let me explain the encoding UTF-8. So this is the encoding argument, as you see there with encoding. It's needed when your system's default encoding doesn't match the encoding of the file that's being read. Okay, so it's always a good idea to supply encoding, and this just is generally what the encoding would be for a text file for sure. So let's go ahead and run this, but I want to make sure that ls.txt does not exist in my file. So I might just temporarily remove it. So let me go ahead and remove that and remove it to my desktop. Paste. Okay, now let me go ahead and run this file. And I get my traceback error, which is that file not found error. No such file or directory. So ls.txt. So how can I handle that? And how I can handle it is by simply doing a try. Okay, so try to open the file. We just simply have to indent our lines. If we get that exception, which now I can copy this down here, file not found error, print, sorry, the file and then we'll go ahead and run that. And now instead of having a traceback error, I have a nice print statement that says the file ls.txt does not exist. Let's go ahead and move Alice back from my desktop to my chapter 10 directory and run the file again. So now everything has been pushed into a variable called contents, okay? And it's a fairly large file, so I'm not going to print it out. But we're going to then add some information in so that we can see information about it. So page 199, we're going to start to analyze some text. So the author refers to these literary works like ls.txt, and they can be found at Project Gutenberg. So gutenberg.org, and you can download these literary texts from there. So that's what he did to create ls.txt. And so we are going to see here. We're going to add in an else clause, just like we did before when we wanted to get some output. So else, and we're going to count the approximate number of words in the file. So words, contents.split method Okay, so using the split method produces a list of all the words in the book. Okay, so we're going to split at a space, okay, and that will be stored, all the words will be stored in words, and then we're going to run the length method in line 11 against words. Okay, so that's going to count how many words we actually have in the ls.txt file, and that stores it in number of words, and then we just simply output. So it has about 29,465 words. And just see how fast that went, 0.2 seconds. Amazing. Okay, working with multiple files. So let's just say I wanted to be able to do this to any file. I wanted to see how many words were actually found in any file. And that's where functions come back into place. So we're going to create a function called countWords. And we're going to use, so I'm going to go function here, countWords. So we're going to send along any file name to this function. I'm going to steal this line right here. And now it's just a simple of indenting. So I'm going to indent each line, another indent. Okay, so that's the body of my count words. I'm going to move my file name after my function definition. And then I'm going to call my function count words, sending along the name of my file. Okay, same output, just code is now refactored so that we could use it in multiple ways. So let's say that we have a list of file names. So Siddhartha oops. Keep hitting my keys wrong. Apologize for that. So I have 4 literary works in my list there. And then of course, now that I have more than one, I'm going to have to run a for statement. So I want to make sure that one of these does not exist, okay, so that I get this file not found print statement to happen. So let me go ahead and look at all of these. So again, I'm going to remove this one, put that on my desktop. So now it's missing from the list. Come back here and run. So, I retype. I guess you could do it that way too, where you don't type the file name right in your list. So, sorry, this one that I just removed and put on my desktop does not exist, but here's the words for count words, or the word count for all of them. And again, in 0.3 seconds. Reads text files really fast. So I'll go ahead and take this one, move it back into my chapter 10 folder, and run it. And now all of them have their word count. Last thing that we're going to talk about is failing silently. This is the working with multiple files that we just covered. So failing silently, let's just say I didn't want my visitor to even know that there was an exception error. So I just simply code pass. So I'm actually just going to do it this way, where I'm going to put an X in this file name and run this again, so we see that this one does not exist. But let's just say I didn't even want them to know. I just say pass. And now I get these here, and they get no information about the one that did not exist. So how do you know when to report an error to your users and when to fail silently? Well, it really depends on who's using your program and whether they're going to know that there is a problem, or even care if there is a problem, or whether they don't need to know. Giving users information they aren't looking for can decrease the usability of your program. So if they're not looking for to see that that file was not found, now they're looking at your information back to them and wondering, why am I even seeing that? But if they are educated users and they do need to know why that particular list item in this example failed, then you do want to provide them that information. So again, it really depends on your audience. So let's look at the lab for this one, and this is 10- we actually got 2 labs, 10-6 edition. One common problem when prompting for numerical input occurs when people provide text instead of numbers. when you try to convert the input to an integer, you'll get a value error. Write a program that prompts for two numbers and then add them together and print the result. Catch the value error if either input value is not a number, and print a friendly error message. Test your program by entering two numbers and then entering some text instead of a number. So let's look at this example. Let me get out of here. Okay, Q. Okay, so this should be 10-6.py. Well, let me do Python. Do I have one? Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. So I need to go back. I need to actually find my directory here. Let's copy this. Now, 10-6.py should work. Oh, no, I'm still in the same directory. CD. Oh, I'm copying the wrong directory. My bad. Sorry, guys. Documents. Just feeding off that chapter 10 and not really looking at the path there. So, CD. There we go. There, give me a number. So we want to create some sort of an exception. So let's do 10 divided by 2. Okay, so it says, sorry, I really need a number. Okay, so that's the exception that would come back from that. The exception is going to be value error, so you will know how to code that in there. So if I do it correctly, I get my result. If not, I get, sorry, I really need a number. Then we look at 10-8 cats and dogs. Make two files, cats.txt and dogs.txt. Store at least 3 names of cats and 3 names of dogs. Write a program that tries to read these files and prints the contents of the file to the screen. Wrap your code in a try except block to catch the file not found error and print a friendly message if a file is missing. Move one of the files to a different location on your system, as I've been doing, moving things to my desktop, and make sure the code in the except block executes properly. So let's visit this one. Okay, so this one is not finding cats.txt or dogs.txt because if you look over at my directory, I don't have either one of those. So if I come in here and do this one, I could say Ross, Rachel. I actually have cats named Ross and Rachel. I have a cat named Garfield. Okay, so I'll save this as cats.txt. And I need to be in my solutions folder. Okay, so now if I see it over here and I rerun this file, okay, it reads out Ross, Rachel, and Garfield, but it still cannot find that dogs.txt file. Make sure that when you're sending these labs to me that you provide me your text files. That would be great. So that ends this second video for chapter 10. If you have any questions on any of the examples, please let me know, or any of the labs. Thank you.